What up, everybody? In Raising Kanan Season 3, I asked the question if these two couriers that worked for young Kanan was young Ghost and Tommy, being low-key introduced to the storyline right in front of our faces. And right now I'm currently rewatching OG Power when I noticed a picture of a mugshot of young Tommy Egan with his hair looking a lot like Kanan's courier that might have been Tommy Egan. So because of that, in this video I want to go back and readdress that topic if that was Tommy and possibly even young Ghost, because we do know that by this point in the timeline that the two have already met. Like I talked about in another video I made the other day, Ghost met Tommy around 1989, and the year on the current Raising Kanan timeline is 1992, soon to be 1993, likely in season 4. But at the same time, I don't think it's guaranteed that if that was young Tommy, that it was also young Ghost, because the credits said the kid who I thought might be young Ghost, that his name is Crank. And the only other nickname that I know of James having other than Ghost was the nickname JSP. Also keep in mind that the kid that goes by Crank, who we thought could be Ghost, was shown in 3 episodes, while the kid who we thought might be young Tommy was only shown once. So I think there's a chance that was young Tommy and not Ghost, because at this point Ghost is still living with his father, who is said to always preach to Jamie to stay out the drug game, while Tommy was raised by Kate Egan and possibly even encouraged to get into the game to make some money so he could help around the house. But at the same time, I can understand the writers possibly giving Ghost an alternate nickname as a way they could introduce him to the storyline without us even realizing it. And while I'm talking about the name Crank being in the credits, the same episode that they showed the white kid who could possibly be young Tommy was also the same episode that the name Kate was in the credits. And after rewatching that episode, I found that Kate was at the bar that Lou was at with the guy that Lou beat down for disrespecting the rappers on stage. And we know that Kate used to go missing at times while Tommy was a kid, and the fact she was with a man during the same episode might have meant that Tommy was just out running the streets because his mom wasn't home, and that's why he was only seen in 1 episode. Another clue that this could have been Tommy working for Kanan is this same episode was when Rock was looking into purchasing the strip mall and the name Tommy was spray painted on the building. This was guaranteed a Tommy Egan Easter egg, because the writers aren't just going to have the name Tommy randomly spray painted on that building that Rock was purchasing for no reason. Also keep in mind when Ghost, Tommy, Angela, and Tasha went back to their old high school in season 5 of Power, the name Tommy was written on the chalkboard at their school. So Tommy marking his territory by spray painting and writing his name in places seems like something he did. Then there's the fact that Tommy told Holly he was the only white kid for 13 blocks and he had to fight every day after school. Even Ghost told his Uncle Gabe that he went to live with Tommy after his father died and called him the only white boy in the neighborhood. And all those years later, Gabe even remembered Tommy just based off that statement. So that's one of the biggest clues that that courier working for Kanan was young Tommy, because if it wasn't, they would still remember another white boy being around, even if he was older than Tommy or if he eventually moved. Then in Force, Tommy told Diamond that he started out in the game selling ditch weed, telling Diamond that he was just happy to be amongst the number. And this also lines up with the possible courier that could have been Tommy, because at the time this courier was introduced, Kanan was selling weed for Simrat. And like Tommy told Diamond, he was just happy to be amongst the number. He could have definitely been talking about the rest of the couriers that he was selling the weed with. And this would have been Kanan's first time teaching Tommy anything about the game, if that was Tommy, because he told his couriers to school themselves on the streets, the parks, the tunnels, alleys, and all that. That way if 5-0 run up on them, they'll know how to lose them. And Kanan also mentioned eventually expanding to Manhattan to his couriers also. And like I said, this character was only showed 1 time, and when Ronnie showed up and Kanan started moving heroin, the possible young Tommy character wasn't around anymore. But like I said, the character Crank did stay around and work with Kanan for the whole season. Then there's the fact that the kid who could be young Tommy had his hands wrapped up. And this goes along with the story that Tommy used to have to fight every day after school, and we know that Kate knew about Tommy getting picked on, but she couldn't do anything about it herself, because she was the one who told the story so proudly about Ghost dealing with the two guys who were picking on Tommy, and nobody ever messed with him again after that. So Kate might have been wrapping up Tommy's hands like that so he could fight, and his knuckles could have been also scabbed up and bruised from fighting so much also, and that could have been why his hands were wrapped like that. Because either though Ghost and Tommy have already met on the current timeline, we don't know if Ghost had dealt with the two guys who were picking on Tommy yet or not. But at the same time, even if he did, Tommy might have continued wrapping his hands up like that because he said he liked to fight. And because we know that Tommy has a history of tagging, he could have also been wrapping his hands up like that for the purposes of tagging. And like I said, there's also a chance that the white boy courier was Tommy, but Crank isn't James. And Kanan can possibly meet James after he deals with the two kids who were picking on Tommy, because it might even be two of Kanan's couriers who Ghost does something to for messing with Tommy. If that kid was Tommy, he was one of Kanan's only couriers who didn't have a bike or some kind of transportation other than just walking. And that would have also lined up with Tommy's story, because we know that Kate was a cokehead and most likely didn't have any extra money to buy Tommy a bike. So Tommy had to come up getting how he lived and probably purchase his own first bike. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that the courier's hair lines up with the picture of young Tommy from OG Power. But it just doesn't line up with that picture. It also lines up with the 1996 credit scene from OG Power, because at this time Tommy was wearing his hair in braids. So Tommy continued to let his hair grow, and once he got a little money, he started getting it braided, got himself a backpack, and probably even a bike. He also told Sean at one point that him and Ghost shared a 1991 Honda. But that will likely be closer to 1996 or even later when that happens. Now the next question we have to look at concerning these characters being young Ghost and Tommy is, does the ages line up? Because Ghost and Tommy would have only been around 12 years old on the current timeline. Because Ghost met Angela when they were in the 8th grade, and they dated for 2 years before Angela transferred to Cho in 1996. And that would have been their sophomore year in high school. So right now, on the current Raising Kanan timeline, Ghost and Tommy would be in their first semester of the 7th grade. And either though the couriers might have looked a little bit older than 7th graders, at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that Kanan is only 17 years old and that he's still very small and hasn't hit his growth spurt yet, because Mekhi Curtis, who plays young Kanan, is only around 5'3", and older Kanan, played by 50 Cent, is about 6 feet tall. So let me know what you think in the comments section, if you think that courier was young Tommy, and also if you think the courier named Crank is young Ghost. And concerning a Raising Kanan Season 4 release date update, I definitely think we might get something this week, because a couple days ago, the Raising Kanan social media pages started promoting ads, and that's always a sign that the show's about to come back on. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.